Okay, in this tutorial for the shot list assignment, I'm going to show you how to trim clips, how to add them to your timeline, and how to add transitions. So you see we've already got one clip in our timeline here, and I can zoom in by just dragging this to the right so that I can see more of that clip. I can see a little thumbnail there. And this is my first clip. It's my introduction, and I'll show you one way to trim this clip here. So first I'll play it, and I can play it. Whatever's in my timeline will show up in my program monitor up here. So I can play it there. Okay, so you notice at the end of that there was a little bit of shaky camera. So I'm going to I can scrub through it and find the spot. I'll play it again and I'll pause it by hitting the space bar right when I want it to stop. So right there, maybe even a little back, I want it to stop right before the shaky camera. So then I can just hover my mouse over the end of this clip in the timeline. You see it changes from a cursor to, it looks like a little arrow pointing both directions. I'm going to click and drag it, and it'll snap to my playhead here. So I've just trimmed off the end of that clip. Now when it stops, it'll stop at a good spot. And I could do the same thing with the beginning here if I wanted to get rid of some of the beginning, and then I can drag it back if I actually want that. So that's one way to trim. You can actually trim in your timeline. Let me show you another option here as we add a few more clips. So after my intro, my next clip I'll do is a long shot. So I'll double click it to open it here, and then I can play this shot up here. I'll play it all the way through first.
This is an example of a long shot.
Okay, so I see that clip there. I see that it's 8 seconds long and 19 frames, so almost 9 seconds. And I can drag my playhead back to where I want it to start. So I notice that the videographer in this case started twice. She said this is and then she started again and said this is an example of a long shot. So I'm going to trim that first part off. So I'll play it. Okay, so right there, I'm going to set my playhead there, and I'm going to click this little icon. It looks like a bracket that says set endpoint. So I'll click that, and then I'll play again.
This is an example of a long shot.
And then that's all I need. So I'm going to go ahead and set my what's called my out point, so the end bracket there. And you'll notice that the color changes in my timeline up here. So I have a dark clip there, and then my lighter gray here, and then dark. So what I've selected is inside these two, the in point and the out point there. Now that I've selected that here in my source monitor, I can simply click on my actual video here and drag it down to my timeline and snap it right to the end of my previous video and drop it there. Now I've only selected in here what was between that in point and out point. And so you'll see if I play it down here by clicking play, I don't have that, the excess at the beginning or the end. So that's another way to select clips there. So let me do this with two others. You might find a clip here that you don't need to trim any off. So this one's 5 seconds long. That's a pretty good length for this project, but I'll play it and see. Okay, so I like that. I might set an endpoint right at the end there, and then drag that down, and we'll do one more. This is the close-up. Okay, so I like that whole clip, and you see it's 4 seconds and 28 frames, so 5 seconds long. I'll drag the whole thing down to there. And you're going to do this with all 19 of your clips, so you'll have these all down here in your timeline. Once you've done that, the next step for you is to set some transitions. And so you'll notice over here in the lower left, you have your effects panel. Now if yours is on Media Browser or Info, you'll just find effects there, the effects tab. You click on that effects tab. You're going to expand video transitions, and then the first one you'll do is a dip to black. So you'll expand dissolve, and then you see you have this dip to black option here. I'm going to click on the little icon, little purple square right next to dip to black, and I'm going to drag it over to right before my first clip. And you'll notice when I drag it over that clip in the video panel or the video track that I get a little, it kind of changes color there. I'm going to drop it. And so you see you have this purple right at the beginning. I'll zoom in so you can see that even better. So you have this purple or kind of pinkish purple, and it says dip to black right at the beginning. And if I scrub over that, you'll see that up here in my program monitor, I start on black, and then it'll fade in. Now if I wanted that transition to last longer, I could pull it out a little longer, play it again. Alright, so that's a nice, beginning transition. You always want to start on black and end on black, so you'll set a dip to black at the beginning. Then you can play with other transitions in here. Excuse me. You can see there's all sorts of different things. So you have, different folders here. I don't even know what some of these are, but stretch over. Let's see what that is. So I'll take that and I'll drag it between my next two clips and I'll drop it there. And then I can play that and I can see the transition that it sets there. Okay, so that's an interesting transition. I'll leave that. And I'll do, in here, I'll do a clock wipe. I'll drag that between my next two. Now, you notice in this one, it won't go between. So I try to put it right in between those two clips, but it's going to go on the second one. I'll drop it there and I'll explain why it won't go in between. Now, this clip that I have before, I didn't have enough space at the end of it in order to have a transition in there. So I'll put it after and then I'll play it and see how it looks. And if it looks kind of funny, then I'll use something else instead. So let's find out. Okay, so that's not too bad. That looks fine. So what you're going to do with your 19 clips is you're going to put different transitions in between each one. In a normal video project, you won't use transitions all that often, but in this initial project, I want you to get the sense for what's available. So I want a transition in between every single clip, and then at the very end, your project will be a lot longer because you'll have 19 clips instead of just 4. But you're going to put a dip to black at the very end so that it fades out nicely to black. It'll fade nicely there, and I'll put one more transition in here, a cross dissolve right in between these two. And we can see that cross dissolve will be just like a nice fade between two clips. And so that's trimming your clips, adding them to your timeline, and adding transitions.